Right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the special town council meeting of Monday, July 26th to order. First off, can everyone rise to the playing of the O Canada? All right, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we need a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. Councillor Dunstall?
Yeah, I just was looking for some points of clarification. Maybe we can approve the agenda, and then if I might have a moment to ask for some clarification on some things, if that's
all right.
Okay. Thank you. I'll
have you as the mover. I just need a seconder. Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the agenda for the special council meeting of July 26, 2021 be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Before we move to the outstanding items from the July 19th council meeting, Councillor Dunstall.
Yeah, I guess that was one of my questions. I had a couple of questions. One, we didn't have a council meeting last Monday night, so we're calling this council meeting a special council meeting when really it's just an extension of the council meeting we had where we were going to have last Monday night. So I'm just wondering why we're calling this a separate special council meeting. And we have 3 delegations here tonight, and I'm wondering, I didn't go to the public meeting. Are these delegations going to be talking about the same thing, or are they going to be giving us new information tonight? And is it appropriate that they talk about the same thing, or should they only be talking about new information? So I'm just looking for some clarification there. Maybe the clerk can help us out here, and it's for the public too. I think as they're listening, And because this is unusual, I think it warrants some clarification.
Yes, and I'm happy to clarify the first one, and I'll let the clerk clarify the second one. The first one is that we actually we had one resolution in our council meeting last week, and it was to not extend past 11. So that constituted a council meeting that night.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
this is a special council meeting to finish up the business not covered last week.
Well, this is why. Thank you. Okay.
And Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the delegations spoke at the planning public meeting. So that was a public meeting. Now they're coming to delegate at a more formal platform, which is our committee of the whole council meeting.
So we're going to hear the same thing. Is that the idea? Mind you, I wasn't there at the public meeting, so I'll be enlightened, but everybody else will hear it a second time then. Is that what we're going to hear tonight?
I'm not sure to the extent of their delegation, if any new materials were added, but that's all I can say right now without hearing it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
We just need a mover and seconder for the adoption of the previous minutes. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole minutes of July 12th, 2021 be approved, and that the Special Council minutes of July 12th, 2021 be approved, and that the Council minutes of July 12th, 2021 be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to number 7, delegations. Our first delegation is Annette Gibbons. Welcome, Annette. All right. Welcome, Annette.
Hello.
All right, so we're ready to go right now for you to begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I have a presentation.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan and councillors. My name is Annette Long Gibbons, and I'm speaking on behalf of the citizens in the surrounding neighborhoods of this development. We are asking council to refuse the zoning bylaw amendment and stop all construction activities immediately. I would like to express my shock in finding out the staff report was coming before you without considering public input only 1 week since the public meeting. We expected the planning department to consider all of the factual information brought forward by delegations of Jean Coombs, Eric Cuspy, Walter Sposia, Monique Sonnegaard Price, Lindsay Scott, Nola Carter, and myself. Hours and hours of preparation went into Walter Sposia, Lindsay Scott's, and my own presentations, providing comparison charts, diagrams, and information surely worthy of a little bit more time and consideration based on the valid points, questions, and concerns, which specifically shows several new planning issues. We feel fair measure was not received regarding public meetings and information requests with the planning department. The entire process seems very deceiving and not transparent. The changes to the plan regarding the additional 2 lots abutting Lawrence Avenue were never approved by council. Density has actually increased to the maximum allowed for the subdivision, which has compromised the transition area to squeeze in as many lots as possible. Density was 24.1, is now 24.9. All written presentations submitted by citizen delegation should be included somewhere in the proceedings. Our entire neighborhood has been engaged with this development from the very beginning. Certainly, if requested information was provided in a timely and fulsome manner, it would be less stressful on your citizens. We have repeatedly asked about the plans for flooding and drainage mitigation measures. It would also be helpful if guidance was given instead of misleading and inaccurate information. It is very important to implement the following before the zoning bylaw is approved. Slide 5, please. Number 1, a stormwater master plan. Submitted per draft plan condition before zoning is approved, with updated climate crisis criteria. 100-year flood measures are insufficient for this subdivision, as there is already a history of flooding. Land retained as natural area 5% instead of cash in lieu of parkland. This would provide mitigation measures for flooding, a corridor and habitat for native trees, plants, and animals, as well as address some privacy concerns. Next slide, please. There's been a negative impact to Grimsby's natural area of this escarpment. The drip line and toe of slope. Why is this so very important? The encroachment to enlarge the development site is in direct violation with Niagara Escarpment Commission and Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority policies. Natural area of the escarpment was altered by cutting and removing trees prior to the area being staked and measured for the delineation of the toe of slope and drip line. Delineation of the toe of slope is required to be reassessed before zoning is approved. Letter has been sent to the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and forwarded to the acting director of the Niagara Escarpment Commission. Next slide, please. The destruction of trees and vegetation removal. Slide 8, please. It is noted in the staff report, condition of approval of Niagara Region, that environmental impact study by Beacon Environmental dated November 2018 be implemented, included but not limited to E, that vegetation removal be undertaken between October and early April, outside of core breeding nesting period and active back period. What this developer did on May 27, 2021 is in direct violation with the Federal Migratory Birds Convention Act. What is the remedy for a violation of the Act? What is the remedy for the violation of the condition? What is the town going to do to enforce it? What is the purpose of having the condition if it is not adhered to? This type of subdivision has already pushed the term of irresponsible development way beyond measure and should be considered as immoral development. They should be held accountable now. Next slide, please. Next slide. It appears on-site grading has already commenced without a stormwater master plan being approved yet. Condition number 4 of the draft plan of subdivision notes that prior to approval of any on-site grading, the developer submit a detailed stormwater management plan designed and sealed by a suitably qualified professional engineer to the town for review and approval, indicating the following. What is the town of Grimsby going to do to enforce any and all conditions? This picture also shows the homes on Lawrence Avenue in the background. As you can see, the low roof heights and large lot sizes. This proposal does not conform to policies regarding compatibility and existing neighborhoods. I have again included the policy section it does not conform with at the end of my presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide. There is no denying what was approved by council and what was received by council are completely different. It would seem there is a very strong push from the developer and the planning department to proceed with this development regardless of what council has approved or not approved, regardless of what the residents are saying, or even the harmful effects it has already had on our natural environment. Next slide, please. Next slide. This letter was actually hand-delivered in our mailboxes on Friday, July 23rd, stating construction is to commence on Tuesday, July 27th. That's tomorrow. How can the construction proceed without council's approval yet? The developer agent mentioned he was denied his offer to meet with residents on several occasions. Fact is, I repeatedly requested meetings through the planning department to discuss several issues, and one being what was going to happen regarding the clear cutting of the trees during May, which is prime nesting season. The public meeting minutes from July 12, 2021 seem to capture developers' comments in great detail, whereas resident comments are briefly mentioned and many concerns were missed. The Municipal Act states minutes should be without note or comment. The developer's agent seems more concerned about getting the 55 homes built as mentioned a couple times in the public meeting. So again, confusing as the amendment shows 56. I understand they are in business of selling houses. However, serious consideration should include measures which are responsible and sustainable. I appreciate being able to present this evening on behalf of our neighborhood and hope the mayor and council will seriously consider all of our presentations and comments and recommendations and refuse this zoning bylaw amendment. Next slide, please. Next slide. We ask a stormwater master plan be submitted before zoning is approved. 5% land retained as a natural area instead of cash in lieu of parkland dedication. Delineation of toe of slope is required to be reassessed before zoning is approved. Remediation of the natural and protected area and buffer increased to 30 meters. Eliminate 2 lots abutting Lawrence Avenue and align with Lawrence Avenue lots. Properties lot number 2 through 15, RD3 bungalows, as mentioned as the delegation had mentioned 5 times when he was presenting this new plan. They were bungalows, not bungalows, and a height limit of 1 story. Fencing of 5 meters along perimeter of property, abutting existing properties of sturdy and quality materials. Main Street lots reduced by 2. Cabernet, Vinifera, and Riesling lots adjusted to RD4 zone, and the overall site density reduced. The applicant's current zoning bylaw amendment proposal does not conform with the town of Grimsby's official plan based on the following. It does not respect the intent of the town of Grimsby official plan to respect the existing physical character of the area, reinforcing the stability of the neighborhood. The built form at the density proposed for the lots abutting Lawrence Avenue would not be consistent with the intent and fair reading of the town of Grimsby official plan compatibility with adjacent uses of land. I thank you for your consideration to all of our concerns, and I hope you refuse. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Annette. Up next, we have, we need a mover and seconder to receive the presentation from Annette Gibbons. Moved by Councillor Frick, second by Councillor Barty. Moved by Councillor Frick, second by Councillor Barty. Resolved that the delegation from Annette Gibbons be received. All in favor? That's carried. Up next, we have a delegation from Walter Spoja. Good evening, Walter. Yes. Good evening, Annette. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, Walter. We're ready for your delegation. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't realize I was missing the rest of it. Good evening. If you can get my presentation up. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. My name is Walter Spogen. I'm speaking tonight to represent the concerned citizens of Lawrence Ave. This presentation challenges the proposed zoning amendments of Bylaw 21-39 as they are unnecessary and only add to adverse negative impacts to the stable neighborhood, specifically to the properties of 13 Lawrence and 15 Lawrence Ave. My presentation contains facts and not simply just my opinion, so I hope that anyone responding to these comments and my questions responds truthfully, especially since I won't have a chance to defend them. First off, the report to council regarding this meeting states there were no planning issues brought forward regarding the proposed bylaw. I'd like to say this is not correct, as my presentation on July 12th addressed concerns regarding the proposed lot 17, especially backing onto 13 and 15 Lawrence. It should also be noted that the public meeting on July 12th was primarily to challenge the uncirculated draft plan change from 15 to 17 lots abutting Lawrence Ave, and not to challenge the so-called minor changes we're discussing today. These last amendments only seem minor because they were not considered in context with squeezing in 2 more lots backing onto Lawrence. So to get into my presentation, I want to make it clear that the zoning amendments proposed by Bylaw 2139 are not simply a result of the required road alignment. In fact, they're a direct result of many factors, including but not limited to: 1, the drastically reduced lot sizes of 2 to 16 to bare minimum RD4 standards as a result of the increase in number of lots from 15 to 17. 2, the developer and their consultants not listening to staff that their original proposed road alignment was not adequate. And 3, for some unknown reason, they're trying to maintain the absolute maximum buildable coverage for lot 17. Next slide. Just want to talk about planning principles. Based upon the official plan provisions, 15 lots, my opinion, adjacent to Lawrence Ave, is already more than generous, requiring RD4 zoning adjacent to RD1 lots. It's the addition of 2 more lots that resulted in decreasing lot areas to barely maintain RD4 standards. That contributed to some of the issues. This proposed amendment would essentially permit RD5 standards for, if you read it carefully, for lots 2 to 16, which are directly adjacent to RD1 lots. It is inconceivable to allow a regular shaped lot adjacent to an RD1 to include RD5 specifications. It goes out without arguing that this development is considered a larger infill site. As such, the OP provisions, as are shown on the screen, state in section 3.1.7.4d, and I quote, "Notwithstanding subsection B, on larger infill properties where new streets and blocks are created, greater variation from the existing conditions may be considered, provided a transition is created between existing housing and new dwellings, wherein the dwellings meet the requirements of subsection B." For clarity, subsection B refers to dwellings having similar building heights, similar lot coverage, similar side yards, similar built form, etc. And further, 3.4.7.4E2 states, on larger infill properties, incorporate a transition area so that lots of similar size and character are located adjacent to existing lots. These are all words from the official plan. Nothing about the proposed draft plan suggests the new lots or proposed dwellings are similar in any measurable way. Ask why even have an official plan if it's not going to be followed. For context, I've included an excerpt from the staff report dated September 24th, 2019 as an appendix. It highlights those relevant comments that I just made there. The next slide. Next slide. So the following images provide a better visual of the proposed lots. I haven't seen anything from Brandhaven, so I did something myself. This is a representation of the approximate buildable envelope for the lots abutting Lawrence Ave, and it illustrates the inappropriate dense massing that is being created next to a stable neighborhood. Please note the potential lot coverage and ask yourself, does this look like a significant amount of open space being created as touted by Colin Chung? basically it's a wall of houses backing onto Lawrence Ave lots, limiting the views and creating privacy concerns. The new dwellings will have a maximum of 8 feet separating them, while the Lawrence dwellings are anywhere from 18 to 60 feet. And if the dwelling, and furthermore with lot 17, if the dwelling on lot 17 is in fact oriented north-south, based on the side yard setbacks, look how close it will be to the pool at 15 Lawrence. And furthermore, if there's no restrictions on height and windows on lot 17, there's going to be direct overlook into the rear lots of 13 and 15 Lawrence. Next slide. To address the road alignment, it's true that the road alignment affects the proposed lots 16 and 17 and is touted as the reason for these amendments. But this road alignment is not a recent revelation. From conversations with town staff, I'm aware that the original road alignment presented by Branthaven in 2018 and 2019, which was the same as the February 27, 2020 plan, was challenged by town staff as early as May 9, 2019. It was deemed to be too tight for winter maintenance. Therefore, Branthaven has been aware of this required road realignment for over 2 years and made no attempt to account for it. I think it's reasonable to assume that Branthaven wanted to avoid the situation because they knew it would result in lot sizes to RD5 standards backing onto Lawrence. And this would certainly have hurt their already misleading argument of a reasonable transition. Instead, they fought the change well into the process, hoping it would be deemed minor, like we're dealing with today. Furthermore, the staff should have dealt with this, in my opinion, a long time ago. And this realignment shouldn't be used as a rationale to provide further concessions to Branthaven. To support, so if you look at the plan below, and this is Branthaven's plan, the turn on the road lacks a logical internal curve, and instead seems more concerned about showing a large lot 17. Next page. This is another image of the report provided on March 2nd by Colin Chung. If you look closely, the southern lot line going from 15 Lawrence to 17 Lawrence does not maintain a straight line, but actually cuts back south slightly. Like, this doesn't even make good planning sense when it's a continuation of an existing road. And even less so since it's nearing a turn in the opposite direction. It's evident that this should have been addressed long ago. And shouldn't be even be an issue right now. It was not addressed because they wanted to avoid the situation. Next slide. This is an example of a proper road alignment, just north of this development on the other side of Main Street. The turn is even less gradual, but it has a nice rounded shape, and it's around an irregular corner lot. Next slide. Brings me to my next point. Why is lot 17 so much larger than the other lots? On July 12th, Mr. Mccall of Richmond's answer was to maintain consistency of lot 1. This does not make sense. Lot 17 is 29% larger than lot 1 and is over 200 meters away. I ask, what's the consistency between these two properties? If consistency is important, there's a number of points there that should be dealt with. And I'll touch upon the bottom one. Lot 1, lot 1 technically has a larger exterior side yard because it was argued by the developer's planner that 4.5 is fine because they have the sidewalk, the boulevard between Main Street. So they can't have it both ways. They can't allow a smaller one for lot 1 and then say lot 17 should be the same. In addition, there's other factors that question the proposed zoning amendments. The staff report to council for June 7th meeting references resolution PD 20-14, which included the following provision, and I highlight: as amended to require the zoning that is proposed for area B apply to all of lots 2 to 15 inclusive. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I interpret this resolution, which refers to the plan presented on February 25th, 2020, to include what is now proposed as lot 17. Yet, proposed bylaw 21-39 does not apply the same restrictions on height or exposure of west-facing windows on lot 17. How is it the proposed draft plan that is termed received can be deemed approved, while at the same time specific written reference can be ignored? Again, what's the purpose of committee and council if they're not listened to? Next page. Again, in the interest of time, I can't read this, but I've highlighted some key wording from the staff report to council for June 7, 2021. If you were to read this, it sounds like staff are placing restrictions on lot 17 to ensure compatibility, when in fact the opposite's true. These changes actually ease the RD3 requirements for lot 17, allow for more lot coverage than the formal zoning would allow. And I may add, at the expense of reducing the size of lot 16 to RD5 standards. References the exterior side yard, maintaining consistency in the subdivision with respect to similar condition on lot 1. And I've already touched upon that. All it wants to do is remove this or change the setback from 6 meters to 4.5 meters, again, to allow more coverage. It talks about the rear yard minimum 7.5 meters. That's already the absolute minimum requirement for all detached residential zones. So there's no concession here. The Q3 is in place to actually control some of those setbacks, and they're just trying to ignore it. So this is just more examples of wordsmithing and misleading information, directed to committee and council to make it appear Branthaven is making concessions when it's the opposite. They're squeezing in more coverage and gross floor area at every step. Last but not least, and this needs clarification because based upon the staff report, lot 16 is currently touted as the only lot not complying with the RD4 lot size standards. However, the proposed amendment for minimum lot area is being applied to all lots 2 to 16. Why? This effectively reduces the lot size specification for all lots 2 to 16 to RD5 standards. It's not necessary, and this could also allow Branthaven to make future adjustments to any of those property lines. Almost done here, but I'd like to ask staff if they've considered any other options to these amendments. For example, removing one of the lots from 2 to 16. This would allow flexibility to increase all lots, including lot 17. It could also allow for larger side yard setbacks with the same size dwellings on them, allowing for more visual or open space for the large residents. At the very least, moving the south lot line of lot 16 approximately 7 inches to the south will bring lot 16 above the meager standard of 400 square meters. Therefore, no amendment would actually be required. Keeping in mind, lot 17 is 72% larger than lot 16. There's ample room to encroach. In conclusion, the question is not whether these changes are minor, it's whether they're actually necessary. The fact remains that this draft plan creates legitimate concerns of privacy and additional massing adjacent to the stable neighborhood, and Bylaw 2139 further negatively affects 13 and 15 Lawrence Ave. There's no compelling reason to approve these proposed amendments. In fact, I have demonstrated that there should actually be changes in the opposite direction. I truly hope that you take these facts to heart, show your residents the respect they deserve by really listening to their comments, adhering to the official plan, and finally by rejecting Bylaw 21-39. Lastly, I request that my facts, figures, and statements from this presentation be accurately recorded in the minutes of the meeting rather than just listed as concerns from my last presentation. I was reduced to 4 lines on the minutes. That's all I have to say. I hope you guys make the right decision, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation, Walter. We need a mover and seconder to receive Walter's presentation. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Frey. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Frey. Resolved that the delegation from Walter Spoja be received. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much for your presentation, Walter, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, we have our third delegation, Bruce Mccall, Richmond. Welcome, Bruce.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you again for the opportunity. I will try to be brief. I just wanted to quickly highlight the importance of tonight's decision and touch on some important points, as this is the culmination of many years of hard work and many meetings with the residents, staff, committee. Importantly, our team and the town's engineers are now in the detailed design stage with the draft approved plan. are in the process of clearing the associated conditions. Again, and as a reminder, these lots are sold out, and there are 55 families, 55 because 55 of the 56 homes have been sold. One is a model home, are sold out, and there's families looking forward to moving into their new homes. With respect to the overall process, I strongly believe that we have all operated in good faith, and that we have met and gone beyond the requirements of the Planning Act, and specifically in responding to community concerns and questions. Councillor Frick, I heard your question last at the public meeting, and while it more so related to the flooding in the overall and nearby area, I have looked into the matter further, as it does partially relate to this application. As part of the redevelopment, there will be a new 100-year storm pipe system installed that will capture the stormwater flows from the escarpment and south of this site. As a result, stormwater will not drain through the existing and surrounding properties as it has in the past. It will now be picked up in the new storm system. So as I mentioned last meeting, I think it is fair to say that the area may realize an improvement with respect to issues and with existing flooding. Now, while I have the floor, with a few minutes remaining, I would just like to quickly present the house elevations for those houses nearest the existing Lawrence Avenue homes. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll do a quick share screen. I think this is important that everyone sees these elevations. Okay, great. So the purchasers of the Lawrence Avenue homes, they had two options. The first was the Wilson, and the second was the Livingston. What I've done here is I've highlighted the portion of the home that faces the existing homes on Lawrence Avenue. So what we can see is that in both elevations, for both models, there is a sloped roof in place of a second story and no second story windows facing the existing homes. This is the condition that was applied based on the discussions with staff, and then ultimately the direction received from council, which at the time was to match what was then an alternating bungalow condition. The direction from council was to apply this style of house, no second story with no rear facing windows, to match to apply this to all houses on lots 2 to 16 and not have the alternating condition. So no matter how we define this house, as a bungalow or bungalow, the condition at the rear where the existing houses exist does not change. Bungalow style architecture was applied. An older bungalow style house will have a sloped roof as well. This third image is a sample of another bungalow product. It contains the same sloped roof, the only difference being that there is no loft in the attic. So with this design, there will be no overlook onto adjacent houses, as there's no second story windows and no second floor facing the existing houses, only the sloped roof. As such, there is no privacy or overlook concerns, the main issues continually brought up by these residents. This was a very good resolution to these comments, as we all saw in the March 2020 video, and we all agreed. I really don't feel that now is the time to come back and suggest that new revisions be made to these houses and to the plan overall when this change was specifically made to address the same concerns. Further, with these models, what is not quantified, and to briefly touch on Walter's point, is the increased yard setbacks, which were briefly discussed in Mr. Chung's delegation in March 2020. These houses actually have 1.85 meter interior side yards, whereas the bylaw minimum is 1.2 meters. The rear yards, they also vary from 7.8 to over 9 meters, whereas the bylaw minimum is 7.5 meters, which results in the increased rear yard setback than what is required. So overall, this results in the reduced lot coverage and increased green space mentioned in the March 2020 delegation. So taken as a whole, these models and changes made to these houses represent significant efforts to address resident concerns. Ultimately, There was an agreement on video made on this premise, and the fact of the matter is, residents' principal concerns of privacy and overlook have been addressed. I will end it there. Thank you all again. And as mentioned, I strongly feel that we've really worked diligently and in good faith with the community and all of you, and we have looked into, if not addressed, all of the concerns raised. So I really look forward to a decision being made tonight. And I would just quickly like to pass it over to Enzo from Brant Haven, as I believe he has a few words as well. Thank you again, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. Enzo Bertucci, I'm the Director of Land Development at Brant Haven. I'd like to echo the comments made by Bruce. A lot of the points he made were points I wanted to make, but I guess want to remind everyone, and I'm sure you're well aware, we have been working on this for quite a while now. And there was an agreement with staff and the residents made in March of 2020. And the points that Bruce brought up in his presentation were the concessions we made. We worked in good faith. We continue to work in good faith. I don't take lightly to comments made by individuals that say that we're misleading or somehow non-transparent. In fact, we've been the opposite. We've worked in good faith, and we were supposed to have this item dealt with in June of this year. Request for an additional public meeting was made. One was categorized as a statutory public meeting. Our legal representation advised us afterwards that we did not require another statutory public meeting because we had ours already. However, we did agree to it and held it, and again, continue to work in good faith, because that is the goal. That has always been the case with Brant Haven, is working cooperatively with staff, council, and the area residents. So we were supposed to come forward, yes, last week, and unfortunately time ran out, and there was no extension to the council meeting. So here we are again tonight. So at this point, I request from all the councillors and you, Mr. Mayor, that a decision be made on this matter tonight. We need to move forward. There are 55 sales, 55 new residents of Grimsby that have a voice, and every day that passes, their closing date gets delayed unnecessarily. We want to move forward. And the construction that went out for the letter for this week is construction we have approval to do. It's just earthworks. And we have approval to do that. So we're not doing anything, again, that's misleading or not approved. We're managing the project as it should be managed and doing what is within the regulations for us to do. However, at this point, we do need to move forward with the zoning so that the next steps can be moved forward to. And we are draft approved on this site. We have been for over a year now. And a lot of the comments that came earlier were draft related comments, which are no longer relevant. So I hope everyone focuses on the zoning issues here tonight, and we can move forward with the decision. I appreciate everyone's time and efforts on this file. Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentations. And we just need a mover and seconder to receive them. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that the delegation from Bruce Mccall, Richmond, be received. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Enzo and Bruce, for coming out tonight. So now we move to our consent agenda. Report PA 2131, bylaw number 2131 to amend bylaw number 1446 is amended, 314 Main Street East. Councillor Vardy, you're muted.
I'd like to lift it for discussion, please.
All right. Yeah. So we just do this now. All right. Yeah. All right. So it has been lifted for discussion. So anyone would like to discuss it? I assume Councillor Vardy, you would.
Yes,
Councillor
through you,
Vardy?
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Bruce, I suppose. I'd like to know what the height is from the ground to the roof peak. And I have other comments as well, but I'll start there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, these are 2-story houses near the front. I don't have the exact height in meters or feet before me, but if you give me a moment, I will pull that number, unless Enzo, unless you have that readily available.
I don't have it with me right now, Bruce, so if you've got it there, please see if you can find that.
That's information that I need. And you've partially answered my question. You said they're 2-story. When Colin, and I wasn't sure if his name was Chung, made his presentation, he said bungalows. Definition of bungalow, 1 story, not 2 stories. You know, whether you've got a sloping roof or not, that's 2 stories, not 1 story. And I was quite thrilled when he said we've made them bungalows, but in fact they're 2-story. So I know you've said, Mr. Bertolucci, that you don't appreciate being comments that you were misleading or someone was misleading, but certainly I feel misled by that comment. I want to thank the 2 presenters for their presentations. And it would seem to me, and I think I'll go directly to Mr. Spoja's presentation, that from a planning perspective, we've really dropped the ball on a lot of issues that need to be addressed on this property. You know, the issue of transition, the issue of we've never approved 17. We received presentations. We never approved 17. So I'm just not comfortable at all in proceeding. You've talked about what kind of drainage you're going to put in. We still want to see a storm master plan. We've yet to receive that. It's been asked for several times. We don't have one. And that's a fundamental piece of the planning process. We talk about transitions when you've got RD5 next to RD1. Well, that is not an appropriate transition. It just isn't by any planning principle you might apply. I'm really concerned by the points that Mr. Spoja raised, because it seems to me, and I'm sorry that it's come to this, but it's just not acceptable. It's not good planning. The fact that you've sold all of these properties, to my mind, is a little presumptuous, because you still haven't had approval. So, you know, if you find yourself in a bit of a pickle about that, you know, that's not my concern to be worried about. My concern is the proper development next to an established neighborhood. So that is, those are most of my comments. The 5% parkland should be used as a mitigation measure rather than money in lieu. We know that there are existing flooding problems. So why aren't we doing that? You know, all the comments that Mr. Spoja raised, you know, that, you know, lot 17 is so big, and, you know, to be in line with lot 1 doesn't make any sense at all. As he said, they're 200 meters apart. And I just think the plan for this is flawed, and we need to get it right. And I'm not against seeing a development there. I'm not, you know, and I'm happy to have 53 more families come into the area with houses that have appropriate lot sizes, that respect the existing neighborhoods, that are bungalows, as were stated bungalows, not 2 stories. You know, I'm sorry, 2 stories is not a bungalow. And that's what I believe Mr. Chung said that he was going to, that you guys were going to build. So I've got grave concerns about going forward in this until we resolve the planning issues. Please do not interrupt me. That until we resolve the planning issues that have been raised, please do not interrupt me.
What's your point of order, Councillor Sharp? Councillor Sharp, you're muted.
Time limit.
It hasn't been beeped, so.
Yeah, so do I get my time back, please?
Yes, continue, Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. So I think that what we should do is take note of all the concerns and I would say planning irregularities that have been raised by Walter Spoja, and that they need to be satisfactorily addressed before we move forward. Even the issue about the turnaround not being adequate, that's been an issue for 2 years, hasn't been addressed. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vardy. Brandon, did you have something to comment about something? I saw you come on screen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in, I think, again, I'm trying to look at this from a neutral perspective, which we as staff are supposed to. And I did make some notes prior to the meeting because I kind of felt where the conversation was going to go. And if you would humor me and give me a few minutes, I'd just kind of like to go through some comments in terms of some of the questions that were raised in terms of the review process and stuff like that. And I want to start this right back from the basics. So we're all on the same page. And if you'll humor me for 5 minutes.
Yes, Brandon, this is definitely a very important decision. So all the information we can get is very helpful. Thank you.
So thank you. So I guess just to start off the draft or the approval process. So as part of the draft plan, the Public Works, the town, region, NPCA, NEC, they all set conditions to which the proponent needs to comply with. For this development, there are 35 conditions specific to public works matters. Conditions include everything from providing appropriate servicing, water, wastewater, roads, lighting. They provide a stormwater management plan, storm sewers, detailed grading plans, and so on. Noise assessments and traffic impact studies. As part of this, they have to enter into a subdivision agreement, pay necessary fees. The proponent submits the appropriate drawings, reports, and studies to satisfy these conditions. Staff are responsible for reviewing these submissions, ensuring they comply with the standards, practices, and sound engineering designs. The process involves staff making comments on the proponent's submission. So they're provided drawings and then they are provided to staff for our comments. And those are addressed through future submissions. So I think in this case, we're on the 3rd submission of the engineering plans for this development. And that process takes a number of months, as the proponent has indicated previously. As these conditions are met, the staff essentially go through the checklist of the development conditions, and we check them off as we go. Once all the conditions are met, then it gets to the approval stage, and basically the development gets registered on title as a new subdivision agreement. In terms of the pre-grading, so it is common for developers to do pre-grading works prior to the approval of the subdivision. Essentially, they're clearing the site or cleaning the site, making it ready for construction. Includes clearing vegetation, and we will admit that there was some mistakes made on this. However, in terms of the clearing and grading of subdivisions or developments prior to the approved plans, this would be considered a normal or routine practice. In terms of the road alignment, just to speak to that a little bit, the road alignment at the south end of the site near Terrence Drive was flagged by Public Works staff through the draft plan process. So again, we had identified it early on the process. and it's specifically condition number 31 in our 35 comments. The condition stipulated the proponent design the road alignment to a specified centerline radius, ultimately subject to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works, which is myself. Detailed design drawing submission proposed an alignment with a tighter radius, and this is one of our concerns. And we asked that to be addressed through through the submission process. So through the multiple plans that we received, we were reviewing that. Some of our concerns were ability for larger vehicles to navigate the corners, ensuring that there was proper driver sight lines, that there wasn't going to be a safety issue. Winter maintenance, again, was a concern. After fulsome review, back and forth between the proponent's consultant and staff, as well as their traffic engineer, they were able to satisfy our concerns. We're therefore now confident that the proposed alignment in the plan that's being brought forward is sufficient. One thing to note, we did require an adjustment to be made with the boulevard width. It was originally being proposed as a narrower than standard width, 5.25 meters, and we asked it to be increased to a standard 5.75 meters, so which essentially affected the property lines. I just want to say the main factor when I looked at that, and I was on the fence about, we had this previously standard that we followed in terms of past practices, and staff brought that up again, as I said, we flagged that as please, we need further information before we're able to support that. One of the contributing factors that made me support it is essentially that this will function as a traffic calming measure. As you know, we're going to talk about it later tonight. Traffic calming and speeding in residential areas are a major concern from residents. So we felt the tighter corner and the satisfaction of all of our concerns, we were able to support that this tighter alignment would actually function as a safer mechanism for controlling the speeds of traffic. I'm almost done. In terms of stormwater, as part of the design process, the proponent needs to prepare an overall site grading plan. I believe we've mentioned that a few times. Again, the site grading plan demonstrates how the development will accommodate site drainage. Some principles that are involved in the site grading plan is they must contain the drainage with their own site, so they cannot drain onto neighboring properties, and changes to the land must not adversely affect properties on the downstream system. So the town has, again, I had indicated, received our third submission of the engineering plans. The current design is proposing a swale along the backs of the rear yards for lots 1 through 17. So that's the lots that back onto the one beside Terrence. I'm sorry, I'm losing the name now. The current design essentially is designed to capture all of the stormwater drainage that is generated from lots 117. It then collects them and takes them to rear yard catch basins. So they're essentially drains, for lack of a better word. And that drain is collected and sent to the road in terms of a stormwater pipe that's in the middle of the road, and the water is collected there. So we can say that as through this development, the grading plans that have been submitted so far are meeting those principles. I can show you an example of where we've approved this previously, but I've rambled on a little bit too much there. So I will turn it back over to you. I hope that addresses some of the concerns and questions that have been raised through the various delegations and by council. Thank you for letting me speak.
Great. Thank you for your comments, Brandon. Councillor Vane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, a couple of things. First of all, just clarification on a few things. The Annette mentioned about the Federal Birds Act and that. A lot of the acts that she's talking about, unfortunately, are not within the town control. They're administered by the federal government, provincial government, or the regional government, and that's not something we can do. And we don't generally punitively punish builders because they break other rules and stuff. I do have a concern with the comment about the builder jumping the gun, which is, this is normal practices, everything that's happened so far. I think more than anything, I'm concerned that council's acting in bad faith here. We had counselors gushing at the planning meeting, how wonderful it was. Councillor Bothwell, Councillor Vardy, Councillor Ritchie approved it or liked it and all that. So, I mean, it's a little late in the game to suddenly say a year later or whatever later that we're not happy now because some of our residents and potential votes are upset at us. And we can't just suddenly change our mind because we feel that we're suddenly going to lose votes. That's not proper planning. And to put the town in a position to be sued for multi-million dollars because we changed our mind is not going to work. Like, I'm not going to go to my taxpayers and say, listen, we have to increase your taxes 10% or 11% or whatever it's going to be because we got to pay off a lawsuit because we changed our mind. That's not professional, for one thing. It's bad faith dealing. And I think the developer is very much doing the right thing here and doing the same as any other developer is doing. We have condos going up in people's backyards right now, if you want to talk about transition. So, you know what? I think we need to move on. We need to approve this and get going, period. Thank you.
Councillor Cadwell?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. And my one question was answered by Brandon, and thank you, Brandon, with regards to the storm management. Obviously, there was a lot of work done within that with the submissions going back and forth. A question I do have on the, and I'm sorry I don't know the name of the street, it's not my ward, where the stoplight is at TSC. But those properties back on to the new properties that will be on the east side of that development. What size are those lots in comparison to the new lots? Maybe Enzo or sorry, the other gentleman, I apologize, can help me out there. Because I'm just curious to how it, I know we're dealing with Lawrence Avenue here, but I was there today. I spent an hour there. I took pictures. I drove all around the area. So how do the lots compare on the east side of that development to the existing development that's would be the west side? Anyways, yeah, to the, if anybody can help me out, I really appreciate that number. Because I know the residents on Lawrence are very concerned, but it's not matching up to their lot size. And I respect that, but I may be wrong on this, but I think they used to be on septic systems when that development was put in. Because I think I remember when I worked for the town when they put the sanitary sewers up there. But again, it's a long time ago. So, and again, the size of the lots that are being built that will be bordering Lawrence Avenue. I'm just curious, are they 45-foot lots or something like that? I apologize, I don't know the exact number, but that's what I need. I need some numbers there to help me out.
Our director of planning's here. So Antonetta, do you have that information? Thank you.
I can't hear Antonetta, sorry.
Antonetta, we can't seem to hear you. You seem to have a problem with your audio.
No.
Yeah, we're still not hearing you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can jump in. Councillor Cadwell, that's an excellent question. And that's something that we did look at through the planning process, was those houses, similar built form and lotting. I'm just frantically looking again for my notes on the matter, which I looked at a few years ago now. And if Antonetta doesn't pull it, if Antonetta doesn't pull it before I do, I will respond.
Okay, thanks very much.
While we're waiting for that information, we'll move on to Councillor Freg. Councillor Freg, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have a couple of concerns, and I haven't changed my mind totally, and I haven't gone totally the other way either. One of them, of course, as I've mentioned many times, and Bruce addressed it earlier, and that is my concern about flooding and stormwater collection and so on and so forth. And he kind of answered my question, but I don't hear the same kind of confidence from the residents in the area. And I know that a lot of what the residents along Lawrence Avenue have experienced lots of flooding during the early stages of this development. when you started to plow the land and take when the buildings came down and so on and so forth. I mean, if they're not confident yet that you are doing the right things, as the town and the developer met with them to show them what they are going to do to mitigate that particular issue that they have a huge concern about, can I ask that of both the town and either Enzo or Bruce, one or the other? Because it keeps coming up over and over and over. I bring it up all the time. It's not, you know, the immediate or the mitigation for the next couple of years. It's the ongoing many years down the road that we put in place. Because every time we build something there, the school is going to go up eventually. There's another huge piece of property down the road which will probably get developed. There's a lot of other things happening right at the bottom of the escarpment that's going to create more water issues. Is there a chance, or have you met with the residents that are on tonight and some of the others you saw in the photograph there, to help them understand what you're going to do and give them some confidence in what you're doing from that perspective? Can I ask both the town and Brandhaven that question first before I say anything else?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Brandon? Yeah.
comment on, I am aware of my staff meeting with at least 2 or 3 residents, specifically dealing with drainage concerns. So we have no hesitation about meeting with residents and helping them understand, you know, what is being proposed here in relation to how we're correcting it to make sure that there's not going to be impact to the property.
Well, if you've met 2 or 3, I'm just wondering if this information is getting down to all of the constituents and residents in the area collectively. You said 2 or 3. I mean, 2 or 3 last week, last month, a year ago. When did you meet with them, Brandon?
I don't have those details at hand. I can certainly provide that to you if it's warranted.
Was it, what, a week ago? 6 months ago?
A couple months ago, I know for sure, 1 or 2 again. I'd have to check with my team, but yes, we have met with residents specifically at their dwellings to talk about their concerns on site. So yes.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed in the last couple of months. So I would encourage the town and the developer to meet with the residents, maybe at town hall, so I don't know where, and just show them what we're going to do. I mean, they're looking for a master plan. I haven't seen the master plan. We talk about it. I haven't seen it. I don't think they've seen it. So I'm strongly suggesting that, and I don't hear, and I've brought this up before 2 or 3 times, and it still keeps getting skirted out there. So can that be done? Can maybe get 1 or 2 representatives to come in and meet with you guys and take it back to the rest of the residents there that are presented tonight, and the other ones that have issued their delegations in writing?
Again, I have no issue with meeting with residents. Is it warranted to have a public meeting again to discuss the overall grading plan? We could do that, but again, I believe we've provided our comments tonight in terms of what we're doing to address these issues. If that warrants an additional communication with the residents there to reassure them again that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we can do that.
Bruce, how are you on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, firstly, I don't think another public meeting is appropriate at all. But I think, you know, Councillor, we have met with and heard these comments from the residents in numerous forums, through numerous correspondence, the community meeting, the public meeting, through emails, through staff. And I have utmost confidence that our team and the town has done whatever they can to address those comments, as we've seen now in the ongoing work with the town. I think, I don't want to speak for Enzo, but I think that he would be happy to meet with residents off-site or in another forum at the town or town hall or on-site to talk about the plan. And I have utmost confidence in saying that. So I don't think another public meeting is at all should be required. I think that we can find a way to explain to the residents more about the flooding situation or lack thereof.
I'd like to just add to that, Councillor. I agree with Bruce. We've had 3 meetings. We had an open house, a statutory one and then a follow-up one a few weeks back. You did bring up this matter at that meeting and we spoke to it. Bruce has brought further information that came directly from our engineer. And I thank Brandon for putting in the information he brought in earlier, because again, I spoke to it as well. The detailed engineering, and with all due respect, Councillor, to all the area residents, it should be reviewed by the engineering staff at the municipality. They're the experts. And whether they do it themselves, have a peer review, however each municipality wants to manage it, that's fine. But I'm happy to share information, but it's not fair for a member of the public to be commenting on stormwater issues that they're not trained to speak to. They can have concerns, and that's fine. And we've said it many times on this forum and other forums that all the stormwater flows on our site will be contained within our site. We will not create any flooding issue with this development outside of our site. If there's already flooding occurring because of other factors that are outside of our development, we can't control that, of course. But our site will have to contain its flows. It'll be designed with pipes that currently are not on site. So when you have an event in an area right now where you've got partial grading done and some removal and you're kind of through the construction process, you're going to have situations where ponding and flooding that shouldn't happen, absolutely, because the site isn't developed yet. So comparing what's happening now to the ultimate build out is unfair. It's not reasonable. There's going to be stormwater management. There's going to be pipes in the ground on the main road, as well as catch basins in the rear lots to catch all the swale flows and bring them to those pipes. And it's designed to the 100-year event that currently the site is not designed to. So, you know, I'm happy to have conversations. There was supposed to be a meeting with myself. I mean, I've been on this file since March of this year, and my predecessor, who was working on this file previously, met with residents in the past, and I'm aware that there was meetings and discussions. There was supposed to be a meeting that I was supposed to attend, and the residents specifically asked for Brandhaven not to be at that meeting, so we didn't attend. You know, I can't force myself to be at a meeting that I'm not wanted at, and that's fine. We had the public meeting, and we spoke at that, and I was available to answer questions there, which I did, to yourself and anyone else. But again, we're here for a zoning matter, and anything to do with engineering will be reviewed by the experts, and we're happy to share all that information with members of the public if they want to see it as well. But I don't think I should be taking direction by members of the public on engineering matters. I should be taking direction from staff at the town of Grimsby.
Totally agree.
Antonetta, I guess your audio is fixed now, so you can answer Councillor Cadwell's question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I hope it is. Can you hear me? I have IT in the room with me just in case it's problematic.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, and
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, between that, I also wanted to say a few comments to address more than Councillor Cadwell's questions, but some of the other comments, if I could just very quickly. I wanted to touch on parks, and I think there was a request from Mr. Spoja of the community, but I wanted to indicate that here at the town of Grimsby, we don't do parks on a piecemeal basis. We master plan all of our parks according to our Parks and Rec master plan and according to broader studies that look at how we are built out as a community to see how the parks can best serve the most members of the public, what is needed in terms of different equipment at different parks, and also what makes sense from a financial perspective from long-term maintenance. So that is why we wouldn't consider a mini park or a micro park in this particular situation. We actually plan parks on a much more, I think, strategic, financially prudent way that makes sense for the long term and for all residents. Then there was a question about the transitions. And again, I'm hoping some of the information I offer can be helpful and give it some context. When the our OP speaks of transitions, it doesn't mean the same as is a transition. So for example, Main Street East, there's those townhouses next to the cemetery. They also abut very large lots, and those are more significant transitions than in this particular instance. But there's a level of compatibility, and there's also the community has been accepting of this. They are able to live and cohabitate together, and that's what planners use as a measure to see what is an appropriate transition. And so, you know, the size of these lots to the 45-foot lots seems very reasonable, in particular because we have many areas of town where we have large lots that are adjacent to townhouses, and that is part of the evolution of the development here in Grimsby. In terms of the birds pieces that came up by Annette, we took that very seriously. I think within hours of receiving her email, I contacted the federal government, who told me very clearly this was in their jurisdiction, it was in their hands, and they would decide what they need to do with that in terms of any, whatever recourse comes of it. They said they would be in contact directly with Brandhaven, but we followed up immediately on that, and that is in their jurisdiction. It's not in the town's jurisdiction, but in terms of our part, we followed up on that immediately to help in that situation. So those are some of the pieces of, I think, some unanswered questions that I thought I could give some insight on to be helpful. Councillor Cadwell, I can't remember now if I answered your question or not, but either myself or Bruce would be happy to answer it. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Antonetta. Councillor Cadwell, the houses, the existing houses in the subdivision east of this property in question tonight, there's a mix of zoning, RD3, RD5, and RD4. And that's generally consistent with what we're proposing here tonight. The houses immediately adjacent the subdivision to the east are zoned RD3, okay? And the RD3 zoning category has a minimum lot frontage of 15 meters, okay? But as I said, we see a real mix of RD3, RD4, and RD5 in this immediate area, okay? So I don't have the site-specific exception for you, unfortunately, but I think that my response would hopefully give you a good idea of the condition in the area.
Thank you. Before Councillor Cadwell speaks a second time, is there anyone else who wants to speak a first time? Any of the councillors? All right, go ahead, Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, I'll be real quick, Mayor Jordan. Thank you. Brandon, and thank you again for your clarification update with the engineering of the stormwater management through the backyards with the catch basins. One just comes to mind. I know we have this around town a lot, but I've never heard of any problems when this type of system is put in for collection of rainwater and that and runoff water. Sumner Crescent comes to mind right away. When they added the new Sumner Crescent to the old one, and I have friends that live, they bought houses in the new area, but they had catch basins in their back. Some of them had catch basins in their backyard. And have we ever had any flooding problems? It seems to be a very, very good engineering principle to support the the runoff and getting rid of the water. Just, yeah, yes or no, that'd be great.
Councillor Vardy?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would like to thank Antoinetta for bringing up one of my favorite examples of a good development, and that's the Vintages development next to the cemetery. They're townhouses, yet they blend in with the surrounding area. They are compatible, as you say. And you're right, things don't have to be exactly the same for things to be compatible. But I don't believe that we've achieved that with this project. I don't believe that we have a level of compatibility between Lawrence Avenue and the new build. The transition isn't appropriate. We're still looking at 3 houses backing onto one. Well, I've yet to get an answer to my question about height. Mr. Mccall Richmond said that they are 2 stories. So whether they're 2 stories with a sloping roof, they're 2 stories, they're not bungalows, which is what they said they were going to be. So I guess what I want to do is say to my fellow councillors, now's the time to take a step back. Development is so important to how we shape Grimsby's future. We need to get it right. And I'm sorry that we've gone down this road, but we're just not there yet. We're not, there's too many outstanding planning issues and issues of incompatibility and issues that need to be addressed before we can give the final okay to this project. And as I say, I'm not against something being built in that area, but compatibility is a huge concern. So I'm asking my fellow councillors to take a step back, take a breath. Let's get some of these planning issues addressed because there are outstanding planning issues. And let's get this right because our future depends on it. That's why we were elected. And, you know, I know some councillors are going to say, well, what if they fight us in court or whatever? That's what we're here for. We're here to stand up for the people of Grimsby. You know, we're the stewards of this town. So we need to take that responsibility, you know, seriously and not just roll over because somebody wants to build something or, you know, they've already sold it or whatever. We need to do things right. And if that needs to take more time, then we'll take more time. So thank you.
Councillor Vane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with one comment made there that we are the caretakers of the town. We were elected to represent all the people of the town, and I'm not prepared to put the town in front of another lawsuit again. So I'm going to ask that we call the question and move on with this, please. Thank you.
All right, the question has been called. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that report PA 21-31 dated July 19th, 2021 be received. That council passes bylaw 21-19. Recorded vote.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yeah, I'm in favor of the zoning amendment. I'm a yes.
Councillor Frake,
No.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Definitely yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Definitely no.
Mayor Jordan,
No.
that's carried.
You must stay here now. The bylaw. All right, now we're moving to number 9, the bylaw for 314 Main East. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-39 inclusive and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for second and third reading of the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Sharp. Moved by Councillor Vane, second by Councillor Sharp. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-39 inclusive read a first time, now be read a second time and third time and finally passed. And the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. Yeah. Good evening, Bruce and Enzo. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
All right, that ends the special council meeting for July 26th. Our next meeting, next regular meeting of Committee of the Whole and Council is scheduled for Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. I would like to remind Council that this meeting is scheduled to start at 5 p.m. to accommodate a presentation from the region of Niagara regarding Niagara Transit Governance. Now we're moving into closed session. Need the electronic participation. I'll read that now. Good evening, members of council. Before we begin the closed session, all members are reminded that any discussions in closed are to remain confidential as per our procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the council of the town of Grimsby. Before we begin, I need each member that is attending to electronically confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, and to confirm that no one else is present with you, and to confirm no one else can hear this closed session, and confirm that you're not using any electronic devices other than your tablet or computer for the purposes of this video conferencing only, and to confirm that you're not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge all of the above, please reply with "I understand" and confirm to all of the statements. Councillor Dunstall? Oh, Councillor Dunstall's left. Councillor Frake?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Cadwell?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Ritchie?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Sharp?
I understand and confirm except electronic devices.
Councillor Vane?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Vardy?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
And I myself, I understand and confirm to all the statements. Need a mover and seconder for the resolution to go into closed. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Vane. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Vane. Resolved that council meet in closed session regarding the following: under section 239 3.1 of the Municipal Act, educational training session, traffic safety workshop. All in favor? That's carried.
Recording in progress.
Now we just need a mover and seconder to receive the presentations from the training. Councillor Vardy, mover, and Councillor Ritchie, second. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that the presentations from the training workshop and closed session be received. All in favor? That's carried. Just want to again thank you, Staff Sergeant Perrant, for attending our meeting tonight, and Michael Palumbo and Brandon Wortman. Thank you very much for your ongoing presentations concerning traffic. All right, thank you very much. Now we just need a mover and seconder for the first reading of the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-54 inclusive, and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for second and third reading. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Freg. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Freg. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-54 inclusive, read a first time, now be read a second time and third time, and finally passed. The mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same, and the rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, all in favor? That's carried. And again, our next meeting for committee of the whole and council is Tuesday, August 3rd, and it's starting at 5 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned. Good night.